posting socially, it's something that all of us independent creators need to do and work with. I've often been the kind of creator who just shows up after I've finished something and I'm like, hey, look, I made a thing. And then I hang back and I look at what other folks make and give likes and that kind of thing. But I know that's not enough. I know I can do better. And I know I can do better. Like, well, why? To reach more folks that I want to help and entertain with the things I make, right? Just like you. Well, I know it takes more than the occasional post. So I want to think through that today on today's Creative Work Chat with Jerzy Drozd, because I know like as we navigate this, I know by the end of the show we're going to come up with some new questions at least to explore and maybe ideas to try, so we all can figure out this whole posting socially while balancing the quality and effort.
Welcome to this Lean Into Art Creative Work Chat episode, where we explore a creative problem, things that come up as visual storytellers, teaching artists, and learners. I'm Jerzy Drozd, cartoonist and teaching artist.
And I'm Rob Stenzinger. I'm a UX designer, an interactive maker, and teaching artist.
Good to see you once again, Rob, for another live creative work chat episode. If people are showing up to this podcast new, we have switched to streaming live bi-weekly. So every 2 weeks we stream a live episode, which is our creative work chats, where you can interact with us live while we sort through a topic together. And then in the opposite weeks, we have a pre-recorded mini workshop episode. So if you've been wondering, like, how come they're not doing it every week? We are. Just that the live ones are only bi-weekly. But the show is still, we're producing a ton of material at leanintoart.com between these two projects and the 2-minute practice. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget Extra Lean.
That's right.
For our patrons too. We are making the content, everybody. It's, and the live thing's really fun. But this flow has created kind of a production rhythm that I think has been helping us behind the scenes. A fair amount.
I think so too. So, where did this topic come from, Rob? I posting socially, showing up to things. I mean, I imagine it's an ever-present topic, but why now? Why talk about this now instead of, a year ago?
Well, I mean, arguably we have, and it's just, I need to continue to practice and improve at it, right? It's related to wearing the multiple hats that we've acknowledged since the beginning on this project, where we do some teaching artist stuff here. We are learners and we instruct and all that through this project. But of course, we're doing other stuff. And this and the other stuff all need to be talked about and to spread awareness and all that, so it can, be of use to folks, right? Mm. And I'm 100% convinced, and it have been for many years, like I accept those hats, but I'm still working on improving at it, right? And I suppose what introduces the newness would be maybe new venues, puzzling out, practicing the different forms of the messages and stuff like that, and then the frequency and noticing my own habits. So it's like I can get better at this for a while, but I have never stayed consistent with it. And so it's and then the consistency of like, well, what do I post and why and all that. And I just want to think through that, because I know that this is more approachable than I'm making it, and so this is a good opportunity to work through it. I mean, I don't know if you saw like a recent very related Twitter thread by C. Spike Trotman, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, where, I mean, she's covering a lot of the common trade-offs and tensions about the necessity of marketing versus, you're probably more motivated to create stuff. The art that got you going in the first place. Well, you still need to do both. Also, the competition for time and attention and patronage. Oh, I mean, I just love that framing of attention and patronage, right? That there's such a low bar for competition. So you could think, well, if you have attained, and all companies deal with this, and some are way more culturally focused on it, right? Where I know for me as an artist, I'm not as worried about protecting a space. I want people to, engage in fair trade with my work, but and I don't want people to steal my work. And in as far as the terms, as far why I put it into the world, right? But like, I'm not worried, but I feel like the collective attention is actually a good thing, where it's like more people, into indie games and, comics or anything I've made, where I'm not worried about someone taking away from my comic because they're interested in other comics. I think that probably is a good thing to where people have behaviors that make them aware of and consume these things in general that help all of us, right? But yet there's a lot of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
both things are true at the same time. And so I don't know, it's not like I want to show up and be 100% different, but I know there's healthy adjustments I can make, and it's worth attending to. So
one of the lines in Spike's thread that really resonated with me was, she said, "There's probably a reason the people who like you aren't going to Disney or Sony or whatever. You need to figure out why, what that is, and constantly remind people of it." Right? Like, what is it? Yeah, what is it about your stuff that makes people come to it instead of going to something from another company, right? Yeah, I'm doing the same work right now, and like really trying to find language to articulate, like, and it's a weird idea. Like, you and I have talked for years on this project about service-driven design, designing things for a constituency, for a persona. And I really, for a long time, thought that I was being articulate in how I described the audience that I'm serving. And I would say language like, "I make comics to do for kids what comics did for me." Okay, well, what does that mean? Right? What does that mean, Jerzy? Well, they made me feel better. They felt like I had some guidance in my life. Okay, keep going. Let's find some more language here. Let's get as specific as we possibly can. And it wasn't until I actually started really working at this that I suddenly realized, oh, I've never had like really clear and specific language around this. I've had a feeling about it, but I've never put it into words. And if I can't put it into words, how can I craft messages that attract the people who will best receive my work? Right? So
it's that first step you described, where you make comics that do for others what they did for you. My paraphrasing, but like that's an important step, I think. And I think it feels so good. It feels like that's enough.
Yeah. That's right.
Where it's like, oh, that's why I'm doing this. But the thing is, the other people aren't you. So what bridges that, right? And that's like, I think that's potentially like an awesome direction for this whole conversation. And because there's the reason that you're marketing and the message that you have. If you have something to say, it's way easier to go out and make posts about stuff because you have something to say, and you're not looking at the blank mechanism, whether it's short video, long video, or text, image, combination, serialized, sequential art. Anyway, there's so much as far as what you could put out there. And so I'm all tied into those mechanics too, and where and all that. But of course, figuring out that foundation of, well, I know why I care about this, and then having done the work in order to help others know why they should care about it, right?
Yeah,
because that doesn't come for free or nothing. It's real awareness and crafting and communication that has to happen, right? Which, because I mean, or hey, did that just do your marketing messages just fall out of the sky?
Yeah, right. No, but They absolutely do not. I have, a realization I had recently, and I do want to talk about like this whole like social thing because it's interesting that you chose this topic for me because we just had a conversation off mic about a presentation that I did at Columbia University, Chicago, where somebody was asking me about one of the students at the presentation said like, well, how should I think about my social media presence? And I just got really tired. And I was like, I'm so done with social media. Like the fact that we have to jump through all these hoops to craft marketing messages and think about how we can articulate the value that we have to offer to the constituency that we want to reach, and then put it in the blender of somebody else's invisible game, right? Like where the rules are not extremely transparent, right? It's a very opaque and arbitrary. What feels arbitrary of a system that where they're.
It's like you're playing Running Man. Every post. Hope you make it to the end. Post.
Yeah. So
roller skates and the hockey sticks coming for you.
So exactly and so I was like, it's just like I still participate, but I know it's a rigged game. So I'm thinking about, can I work in other federated places? Federated, relatively speaking. Can I work with email? Can I work with my own website? Things where I have more control over the visibility. But when I was sharing that with you off mic, you were like, well, but you still kind of got to play on the socials too, right? And I'm like, do I really? And I went, harump.
I need a vacation. It's like the Flintstones animals, so tired, right?
That's right.
It was like, I've been plugging these wires all day. I live in a rock little box,
Yeah. It's a living. Yeah. So
sure.
I mean, but I want to get at this idea of like the resistance that we feel to participate. Because I think if I were to put into words the feeling that I get when I go onto social media to share anything, it's that, I hope I don't get pulled into something. I hope this doesn't become a longer conversation than what I have budgeted here, because I only got a few minutes. So I tend to use Hootsuite and just like schedule a bunch of stuff and just like go. And if somebody says nice things to me, I'll respond. But like it's almost like I'm running into the room and throwing my business cards to the floor and then running away as fast as I can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a funk, I guess. I mean, it's so funny. I stirred up trouble with this topic. It's so, we can't not step into marketing. It's so and because you think about the functions of it, right? So, great, you put a message into a virtual bottle and put it out in the world or what have you, or and it's how all those different venues and places where you put the message in, they function different, and like, what about when people do see it and how do they want to react, right? The whole cycle of this thing, and everything's more participatory, and or the ability to participate, whether you were invited or not, and all that stuff, has a lot of interesting and powerful possibilities. But one of those is like, taking up more time and resources. But that's maybe that, I don't know if it makes sense to say that was traditional marketing, right? Where you sort of, you put out an ad in some form. Like if you are Nike, you can do a full page New York Times ad and run a whole campaign across multiple magazines and slightly different messages and what have you, and partner with, other big entities and stuff for sales and whatever. But like, we're not that. And so for the small players, it's like, well, I'm going to make a zine, or I'm going to show up in a local paper, or I'm going to do a thing. And you're like, but then the possibility of that coming back at you isn't much. It takes a ton of motivation for someone to find you and make that a conversation. But now to find you and make that a conversation is combined with the message at this point. Everything can be a conversation. So how do you want to handle it? I don't think it's unreasonable to say like your intent as an artist is one thing and others can have different ideas about it. So then I guess it's like, well, what are your boundaries? Do you expect to, are you on call 24/7 in some unsustainable march to, you know, you know, get that attention is at any cost, right? Or or do you just accept, well, I don't know, that's how marketing works sometimes. You can talk at your TV, that's fine. I won't judge.
It's true. We do talk at the TV, and that's an important frame. So yeah, there's this idea that like we have to budget resources for this. That was what Spike's thread was all about, was that there's more to it than just showing up and producing stuff and sharing it over and over and over again. And I think she correctly in her thread pointed out that an erroneous assumption that I am so busted on is that this idea, and I think some like language that successful creators have used in the past, like I let that bewilder me when they would say like, well, if your stuff is good, it'll rise to the top and people will gather around it. But okay, well, I just got to make really good work, and if people don't gather around it, then must not be very good. Right. But but Spike points towards something a little bit more subtle where it's like, no, there's people who do dig what you do. How do you reach them through the massive field of competition for attention? So, and that's where clear messaging and stuff. And I think something that you mentioned in the notes is like these different social medias are different virtual places. I wonder if you could elaborate on that.
I mean, part of my resistance is I have deeply mixed feelings about the ethics of the systems of all the things and the emerging circumstance that is created by all the platforms, right? And to experience that over time, right? If you show up day one, if you just say, I today am going to go to Twitter and make an account, you're going to have different feelings than someone who's been there, 10, 12 years or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Or 13 or whatever it is at this point. And it's because the life cycle of the companies and their behaviors, and that changes, and then the community changes, and then the competitors and different venues and their features, and then the cross adoption and competition and what all this stuff merges and evolves. And it's like some days I wake up and I look at Twitter and I'm like, wow, it's the post-apocalypse version of the city I moved into, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's and I do think of that where like I'm a citizen in this virtual platform. I don't know. Some days I think of it as an island or a city or whatever. I don't know, but like I live there virtually, and then wait a minute, I live on all kinds of these other platforms virtually. So I'm like a citizen in a bunch of different places. Where do I go and participate in, for anything on any given day? And when I start to look at and consider participating in them, I'm struck in part because I'm a creator of systems. I've built a lot of different kinds of software over the years, and big team, small. And I think about, and I've worked in for large companies, small companies, and I think about like, why does this thing exist, and what does it feel like to be there, and all that type stuff. And I don't feel awesome about a lot of the observations I gather, and so now I'm looking at all this stuff that I'm like, this should be so much better than it is. And I don't want to just be a virtual corn plant on a farm that I might go under the tractor tire, or I might get harvested or whatever. I don't know what happened, but like I am so inconsequential in this big freaking thing. But then again, I look at it sometimes and I'm like, what if I am the happy shopkeeper in the city who's going through tough times, right? And I'm like, I live here. It's my city too, right? I'm going to sweep out front. It's my city too, right? Oh, you spat on there. Whatever. It's my city too, right? And I just want to keep at it and show up and live, right? And that's like the best thing I can do to encourage myself to say, well, weather stinks today. Dumpster fell over today. still my city, right? I mean, like, what am I, like, I live here. What else am I going to do but go about, And that's such a, but it still doesn't exactly, it opens the door to re-engage is what that kind of metaphor helps me with. Because I can easily justify saying, nope. I can say nope to any new platform that comes up or whatever, because I know what you're going to become. You look great. This is a nice little, I like the small village version of Twitter. And I like the, and not just because I want the diverse, complicated voices without the hyper manipulated lens, right? I want to be connected to the people, not to the algorithm. But that's not what we have. Oh, well, it's still my city too. It's your city too. We all live here, right? So I guess let's make the best of it and whatnot. So anyway, how does that help anybody? But I'm happy to share it. What do you
No, I think that's a useful metaphor in that if you're, again, our proclivity is to show up in a spirit of service, and sometimes the service is to be rendered is not immediately apparent when you log into some platforms. Like when you said, like the post-apocalyptic city sort of metaphor of like, well, it felt like a fun, chatty little village, and now everything's on fire all the time, right? So what do you do? But yeah.
And I know, like, and so part of that too is like things always were on fire, and now we're just more aware of everything being.
That's
on
very
fire.
true. That's very true.
And that kind of, so like I'm aware of that as well, and I'm like, what, and I admire I admire the picture of my head of the citizens that just keep showing up and caring, and I'm like, I need to get better at continuing to keep showing up and showing that I care, because I care even when I'm away and I hurt and ponder and all that. But like anyway, but yeah, so but that's, let's see, some combination of pragmatism and acceptance and caring to try to contribute to more positive, right? And then it's like, even after accepting that, it's still like, well, haha, you're a citizen in all these platforms. Oh, you've got a lot of like in a role-playing game, you got a lot of grinding to do. Look at all these missions and quests that you've accumulated. So you're seeking to be, a little marketing, role-playing hero. Go out there to the TikTok, go out there to the YouTube, make long video, make short video, make piles of who knows and put it on Facebook. Make sure you're doing all the different things in all the different places, right? And I'm saying that, like, part of my brain tells me this. I'm not saying like that's and that's our advice today.
No. No, I have in the past felt that pressure. Like when a new platform shows up, I better go get my username if this place takes off, right? Google Plus was like, man, I was all in on Google Plus. It seemed awesome at the time. And yeah, why are you smiling like that?
Well, you were like, you had a lot of followers on the Google Plus. I had over 1 million, like almost 2 million followers, right?
I had almost 2 million followers on Google Plus, and then they canned it. To be fair, that's because I got put on a suggested user list, and a lot of those followers like weren't like engaging with me in any way, right? So it's like, oh yeah, 2 million people. Yeah, well, I think like maybe 600 of them actually like care about comics. The rest of them was like, oh, I'm just gonna bulk add these lists so I can start interacting with this new platform called Google Plus. But yeah, it was that was a place where I did not feel the friction of showing up. I felt like it felt like there was something about that felt very practical in that it could also have an RSS feed for your feed, and so I could like pump it into my blog, so it was both my social posts and my blog at the same time. That was really cool. Whereas now, and maybe this is part of the reason Google Plus didn't succeed, is like things like Instagram. It's like, try getting out of Instagram, right? Links in my profile.
Yeah. Hypermedia, nah. Hooper media. Come through one hoop.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's my old man for the week.
But anyway, yeah. So I don't know. Did we want to dig into that a little bit about like our thoughts about like the different places and what the expectations are in the different places?
100%. Well, and with the lens of being like believing in being a citizen, both for like it's like, yeah, I want to market. I also want to be connected to the our current expression of humanity, which is these different places where we can gather, right? And I know while acknowledging the extreme mixed bagness of it. So showing up, right, as a whole person that markets also, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in these different places. So whole person markets, different places. Because yes, I mean, I could get stuck on talking about like how befuddling this platform is versus another, or how I've patiently watched a platform and said, okay, you teach me what you're about. What are you about? Nope, still not getting it. And you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. I like digging into it with that lens. Would love to do that.
Okay.
I assume after a break.
Well done. It's almost like you podcasted before. Okay, so yes, we're going to take a couple-minute break, and we're going to talk about the different platforms and what we perceive their expectations to be. How do we think about what we put on them and what we hope comes out of those interactions, etc. Before we do that, we got to thank some people who make this project possible. So if this is helping you think and do useful creative work, a great way to help the show is to support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/LeanIntoArt is the website. And I want to thank 5 people who have been supporting us on a regular basis. JSTaskis, thank you so much, JS. Gail Buschman, thank you, Gail. Stephen Stone Bush, oh, thank you, Stephen. Nate Marcel, who happens to be watching live right now, thank you, Nate. And Jodels Pox. You can join them all at patreon.com/LeanIntoArt, where you will find all of the shows we make, as well as the extra leans, the shows we record only for people who support us on Patreon. And then you can also check out the Lean Into Art monthly labs. Do you need a place to show your work in progress? We can all use a little encouragement and feedback. The Lean Into Art monthly 90-minute lab session is a place where we host a creative group of professionals developing their projects. The constraints give it meaning. It is a chance for you to show up, to share what you're working on, and what might be blocking you. And we will be there to encourage you and find new possibilities. Also, it's a place to work in the presence of others, whether you choose to share or hang back. Each session, held on the third Wednesday of every month, is facilitated by one of the 2 hosts of Lean Into Art. Both Rob and I have decades of experience in teaching and facilitation of creative groups and processes for all kinds of projects. Each session will be a unique one-time experience. Sign up to reserve your spot for the low introductory price of $10 per month through our Patreon. Patreon.com/LeanIntoArt. Thanks to everybody who supports us there. It means a lot to us.
It really does. I love your ad read of that too, by the way. That's awesome. And it's been going really pretty great, the labs. And
the lab is really fun. It's really cool to see the energy that carries out of it into the Discord right afterwards. You know, it's like right after the lab is over, we're like, wow, that felt great. And then watching everybody like, oh my gosh, that was awesome, high five. And I'm sharing a whole bunch of things now. So yeah, it seems like it's got a very healthy vibe to it. And yeah, it's fun to be part of. So
yeah, that's that is true. And I think I mean, what a neat thing to be able to to connect. It's like, yeah, we're there, right? So you probably have heard lots of our voices over lots of time where we can't hear you when you talk back at the TV. Well, now you can talk back at the TV and we hear you. Right?
That's true.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. So we're back now in the second part of the show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, yes.
Such a good theme song. Such a difficult television show. Cool toy though. Okay, so let's talk about the different platforms and how. What are you thinking about with all these different platforms, Rob? Because like I know you're feeling that you described this voice saying like, go on all these quests, go on the adventure, and populate all these villages. How is each village different for you?
Well, part of it too is that I mean, some of it comes with confidence of practice, where it's like I've done all kinds of creative challenges. I know I can set up some kind of system to go on these quests. I know it's possible to design something, and I just haven't quite found what that something is, because in some ways it's like one quest I have to bring a tape measure, the other one I need a big thermos, the other one it's like, a wheelbarrow or whatever. It's like they're all different quests kind of, but not totally. So you've got let's see, we mentioned some of this where YouTube is really about medium and probably medium length video, sometimes longer length. But then TikTok is obviously short video, Instagram, combination of things with an emphasis on the don't notice that you're stuck here. Just chill, relax.
Yeah.
Hey, you don't worry about those pesky links taking you to different places.
I know why this is triggering me is because I was a blackjack dealer for several years in my youth when I was saving up money to move to Arizona and help Ann get through college. And casinos don't have clocks on the walls, And like if you look like you're getting ready to leave, the pit boss will come over and be like, "Oh, you're not leaving us already, are you? Come on, you can stick around a little bit more. You can lose a little bit more money, parenthetically, right?" It feels like that, and it just makes my skin crawl. So yeah, this idea of like, oh, you don't want to go just yet, do you? Well, you don't want to go find out more about the creator that you chose to follow purposefully because you're really interested in who they are, what they do, and you believe in them and want to support their work.
Yeah. It's tough. That's okay. Because so there's that too. There's the both invisible and not so invisible hand of agendas and designs shaping your behavior to match those agendas that may not really include you, right?
Yeah.
Or includes you in an extractive way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, that's kind of yucky, and I feel that as well. I mean, something I've wrestled with a lot throughout my entire UX career is designing ethically and inclusively, where it's okay to have a platform that is very compelling. And I like to make video games. Video games are these potentially very attention grabbing mechanisms, but I look at that with great sincerity and desire to do thoughtful care, right? But some places are like, let's use those mechanisms in a way that just, it's only about us and our investors. And it's like, yeah, okay, fine, I get that's a powerful mechanism. I'm not going to just tip over all the tables and say, there's like we all need to live paleo style or whatever, right? No, I get it. I'm a citizen, social media, virtual places, whatever. Anyway, but also, how do I? So okay, it's going back to how do I go on these different quests, and then Instagram and all the platforms like me, and TikTok has its thing too, where pulls you in, is trying to be entertaining. It's like you walk into like a whole festival of puppet shows, and it's because seriously, it's not even just like one show. You're like, oh dang, that kind of looks like Kermit, huh? Oh, that's kind of fun. Whoa, there's another one, and there's another one, and another, and you're like, oh, and you're just caught in this whole interesting maze of the stuff, but and then trying to understand. I have been actually doing that observation that I was, maybe not just putting on a bit, but like I've been really trying to understand the nature of TikTok to figure out, like, in its nature, like what could I do with that fits with my creative stuff. And but that, I mean, so you've in Twitter and Facebook, I mean, they're kind of multi-purpose things, but then Facebook is such the weird creature because of its history and the social, your the nodes in your graph, your social graph, right? And where, I mean, and it's like such a kitchen sink of, and it does all the things, and also it used to do this thing, but now it behaves different. So Facebook is like that ever changing. Um, it's the weirdest city I think I'm in, right? Virtually, where I'm like, this was not what it is now, and I don't even know what to do there. Like, I rarely even post it all on Facebook, except through flaming hoops of, if when I post to Instagram, which Facebook owns, got to remind myself of that, that this content does show up on a Facebook page, which is not me, but it has my name, and it's a separate thing, like they want businesses to be, right? So, and it's the whole, it's frankly a racket, right? Where you're like, oh, I got a Facebook page. And then it's like, well, hey, nice content you got on your Facebook page here. Facebook says, would be a shame if your audience didn't get to see it, And it's like, okay, all right. So I didn't, yeah. I mean, so Lean Into Art's been around for a long time, and we've got a Facebook page, and it used to be a kind of a vibrant-ish thing, and now it's like, and I know a lot of folks who deal with that. So anyway. And of course, then we have the small forums, the list of like, oh, you're probably on Slack, or maybe you have a Facebook group, but so now you created this bubble in this smaller context place, and of course, Discord, right? And even being a co-facilitator of a Discord server, I don't always know what the heck to post where and all that stuff. Frequency and whatever. So now, okay, then knowing all this stuff, like, so it's a puzzle. What is your take, Jerzy, as far as managing it tactically, and like, how do you sort of get through this and be a citizen and market?
Yeah, it's something I haven't been. I'm not awesome at. It's something I'm working on, and right now the only step I've made that is like a real first positive step is I'm budgeting 1 hour per week to do posts. So I have a specific hour that, like, and it's I would call it an airbending task in that it can move all over. I don't have it scheduled for a specific time. Like, okay, this is the hour that I budgeted for social posts. Just like, okay, if I find an hour on the calendar, I have it in my my time tracker at the top of the week, say, don't forget to budget an hour for this. And so I use Hootsuite for now just to schedule things, because going into the platforms to post each and every one of them, that has a cost. And the next thing I'm thinking about is, and I've only done preliminary thinking because, like, I'm doing a lot of work. I'm doing a lot of work on building a marketing plan for Baron von Bear, which we'll talk about in a little bit, I'm sure. And I'm thinking, okay, email list, Patreon for sure, YouTube, absolutely, because I can multitask in that. I can create content and sell the sawdust in terms of giving commentary while I'm making the stuff, right? At least with like Patreon exclusive things. But then I look at things like, okay, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, etc. I'm going to have to do some culling there and say, like, okay, I'm not going to do anything on these. The cost is too high and the return is too negligible. Like you said, Facebook, I don't even know what it is. Like, there's an emotional cost in terms of I get there and I'm bewildered. And I have so much empathy now for people who are a generation older than me, who were like encountering like the first round of social media going like, what Twitter? Like, what are you typing? I'm eating chips. I'm laying on my back. I'm laying on my stomach. Like, why would you do that? You know, like I feel a little more gentle towards them now than I did back then. Because when I get into Facebook, it literally is, I feel like it's the text equivalent of being at a rave party and everybody's waving glow sticks in my face. I'm like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta sit someplace where it's quiet. So yeah, I'm thinking like, okay, if it costs me that much emotionally and I don't really get any signal back. I mean, literally, I post to my Facebook. I have a professional Facebook page. I post it like 2-3 times a week, and literally one person on the planet interacts with them, and that's my buddy Hoover, because he spends a lot of time on Facebook. So, you know, he apparently has given them enough of a signal that he gets notified when I post things. Whereas on other platforms, I do get more of a return on investment. Instagram in particular, in the sense that at least I get activity and attention there. I have been actually starting to look at my metrics and see like, okay, is anybody clicking anything in my profile? And like, okay, for every 50 people who look at a thing and give it a thumbs up, one person will click on a link in my profile. Okay, that's something. That's at least a statistic I can point to. But yeah, good.
I mean, that's it. That's the nature of marketing, right? I mean, you put a thing in the world, and there's a lot of like, you know, marketing skills and heuristics as far as, you know, to manage expectations and to create some kind of framework to evaluate, is this effective or not, and how is it affecting me? And you can have you know, different ways of looking at that. But like in what's your threshold for enough? You know, like when is the you know, when is it working, or when is it doing that other work that's the behind the scenes trust over time building and relationship building and awareness, right? So yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean you know, big numbers everywhere all the time, but it is a little bit of the where all of a sudden, in like, for instance, I mean, you had a situation where in one venue you were huge, like as far as audience, you had a huge audience.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, how do you, and I think so some of that too, it's a little bit of the, well, if you like adopting the habit of well, bringing people to your different platforms, so they're really following you, not the you as a citizen on that particular platform only, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then being at small scale, like a few is enough, right? It's not like you're Coca-Cola or.
I don't want to be Coca-Cola, man. I am not interested in that kind of power and influence. I that is another thing that I think has been revelatory to me in the last couple of years, is that I have zero interest in being like Lady Gaga famous. I don't want anybody to look. You know me well enough to know that that's not sour grapes talking. This is something where it's like I've done the thinking on it, and I'm like, you know, I think of the line of Samwise from Lord of the Rings when he rejects the ring. Like the ring tempts him in the third book, right? And says like, look at what you could have. You could have like 1,000 gardens with all these people working your gardens for you. You'd have the most beautiful garden in all of Middle Earth. And he's like, nope, throws the ring down. He's like, one small garden of a free gardener is all my need and do. My own hands to use, not the hands of others to command, you know? It's like, that is the picture for me. It's like, I just want to make books that make kids happy, and I want to go meet the kids and work with them to help them feel like they're valued in this world. Like, that's it. And the bigger I would get, the less I would be able to do that, right? Like if I'm selling out Carnegie Hall, how meaningful is that experience that I'm having with those kids, right? So like, anyway, so
it's a good question, and honestly, I hope you do end up having to deal with that problem. But like, because I think you would meet it, you would find a way to meet that in a meaningful.
Don't get me wrong, I want the money. I want the money and comfort that would come with that, but like the trade-off, I'm not sure if I would be happy about that trade-off. Anyway,
it's tough. I mean, there are ways to manage that, but then of course, I mean, I guess all of this is some kind of pragmatic acceptance of participation in different systems, and then try to make that participation more meaningful within your framework of what you believe, right? And I don't know. Yeah, not that helps anyone know how many posts to do.
Well, no, yeah, and I'm skeptical of any sturdy advice on those kinds of things. I remember when I was started to do live streaming at the top of the year, like when I scheduled it, and I was listening to podcasts and watching videos on YouTube, like advice on how often to live stream. They're like, you should be doing it at least 4 days a week. And I was like, no, that's not happening. Like, that's okay. I'll do my twice a week. But
web comics, I've been there, participated in that. It's okay, but is that totally true, right? I mean, so a precise prescription probably isn't going to have any kind of substance, right? But at the same time, we are really strongly pointing to some general things, right? So it matters to do this stuff somehow, right? But then what can help, like, and what I'm trying to figure out is not a prescription, but like what would be, and like in part my hope for instigating this conversation with you today is like what could shake out as like, this is worth trying, right? Honestly, my hunch was, a reminder and commit to it. Like this is a behavior I want to practice more within reason, within a reasonable budget. So I have some idea of what I want to do, when and how, right? And of course for the who and all that stuff. It's good to answer those questions. But like you mentioned, you're using Hootsuite, and I'm like, yeah, I think I have a couple of mechanisms. Like I think Canva can do some scheduling now.
Oh, that's cool.
I know Later can, and Later is fairly functional and free. Not for like, I have multiple accounts on different platforms and what have you. But like if you, for one account on like 5 different platforms, I think Later is free. But so you're right. So there's these general mechanisms. I don't know which one, right? But like do a little bit of scheduling ahead. I don't know what would make sense. What would you commit to? How far do you schedule ahead?
Lately it's only been 1 week ahead. But I do like this idea of like, okay, yes, we are both allergic to prescriptions, but we do like to say, but behind a prescription is a principle. And I think the principle of show up on a regular basis so that people know when to find you is that makes sense. That feels like it has utility, and it feels robust in that, okay, I'm only once a week on Tuesdays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time at live.jdrozd.com. But you can count on me being there at that time. I'm going to show up every time at that time, right?
So and even having one time is so that is something I haven't been able to work out. Like I have been prepared to experiment with more streaming for many months now. Like I am set up with a bunch of different ideas and what I want to do and all that. But the timing regularity has been truly tough to figure out.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, with how chaotic things have been and continue to be, that's a tough one. And that was a negotiation I had to make with myself and with my wife, where I said, okay, this is what I have in terms of time budget. I have 2 hours a week I can do this. And then I sat down with my day planner and, worked out where the optimal times for me to do it. And then I talked with Ann and said, like, okay, does this conflict with anything that you've got going on? No? Okay. So Mike White is in the chat asking what made me pick 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. And it was looking at my calendar and looking at where my commitments are. So I have afternoon commitments Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays in terms of teaching. I'm teaching online comics courses and doing mentoring with young people. So it can't be between 4 and 6. After 6 o'clock, that is something where I'm trying to make a concerted effort in my life to be more present as a husband and not do the bananas around the clock working that I have historically done. I remember looking at my day planner, my time tracker once when I was with my coffee clutch. This is like 5 years ago, and I was filling out some things that need to be done in the day. And they would look over my shoulder like, "Do you really work till midnight? You work 9 a.m. till midnight?" And I'm like, "Well, no, it's just that the work is distributed over that whole course of the day. There's breaks in between." But like, I never was giving myself like 4 hours anywhere to just be a person. There was always a next thing that had to be attended to. So yeah, so like that's the kind of negotiation that I had to find, and I had to also make sure that, okay, well, does this conflict with any other commitments I have in my personal life? So that was the only spot it could go for now, and that will, if it changes, I will let everybody know ahead of time.
I think this points to another principle, right? So like, I think you've got you have a merge of a couple ideas that I think are worth noting, right? You've got the valuing of your time and the task enough to say this is important enough to schedule, and that creates a variety of rippling effects. So the important enough to schedule, and then saying that even the smallness, some like things will ripple from it. It's okay that it's like, I think you have a couple of times that you stream, but like, even if you're picking one time to do that thing and to show up, right? It's more than nothing, right? And that's I think, and that's a really big deal, to go from nothing to something and to tend to it. And that's a big deal. So like, doing something is really important. And then it's if it is, I don't know what the time and schedule thing is as far as how it feeds into it, but I think it's a separate kind of recognition of the importance, and saying that it's because in a way you're calling out to the world saying, I'm showing up at this time, like you can show up here too, right?
Yeah,
that's really clever. And then I would imagine there's other aspects of the connection and communication that can flow out from those things. It's important, even if it's small, but scheduling it. I'm trying to turn this into like, I'm going to, after this episode, like I am going to use this as criteria to try to do an experiment.
Well, this also comes back to something we talked about in some recent episodes in terms of I'm experimenting with time blocking. I'm saying, okay, these are going to be non-negotiable. My God, unnegotiable. What am I, in 4th grade? Non-negotiable blocks of time where I'm going to be performing a certain activity, trying to make some of my work sessions more earthbendy and less airbendy, trying to both be less flexible in order to create more useful focus on the work. And the live streaming, yes, that's partially, it's like creating just like we do with the Lean Into Art cast. This is a time of the week when you can expect to find us. There's an artifact afterwards that you can interact with. But if you want to interact with live, this is the time to do it, right?
I think it's easy to get lost in the noise of this is like we mentioned other formulas, having participated and experimented with, like back in the, like right around 2008 through 2011 or 12 or so, when I was actively doing my comic. They're very much infused in the best practices space, because people want to learn from others who have gained expertise and all that, and so we're all trying to listen and figure it out. And the emphasis on publish consistently, ideally, many days a week and all this stuff, and forever keep to the schedule. There was something to that, but at the same time, it's like, well, that doesn't quite fit me, right? So advice that really fits someone else's context. How can I trim that back, and is there some relatable core that I can make work for me? It doesn't have to be there, but if it is there, and I do think there is something about the kind of, it creates a rippling effect to do that specific schedule. So what are you going to do when, and then put out the word, and that is pretty powerful. Like I think that seems like it has a lot of helpful side effects. But doesn't have to be like show up 4 days a week and what have you.
No, I have been really chewing on this idea ever since I heard that Kazu Kibuishi didn't work weekends. And this is, in retrospect, I can't believe that this thought occurred to me, is that when I heard that sounded like luxury that only the idle rich could enjoy, right? You don't work weekends? What are you talking about? I have worked every day of the year. There is not a day that doesn't go by that I don't attend to some of the work that I do as a professional cartoonist, freelance illustrator, teaching artist, et cetera, et cetera. So like it sounded like moon language. He doesn't work weekends. Did you hear what he said? And in retrospect, I'm like, well, yeah, that's why people in the turn of the 20th century fought so hard so that we could have weekends. That's a thing that people paid a price for, Anyway, so I'm trying to be, good.
No, I mean, you're not alone in that. And it's, this is a whole, like, everyone has their own life circumstance, reality to figure out. And, and also timeline. Wherever you're at right now probably is different than where you were, and probably is different than where you're going to be, whether you see that picture clearly or not, right?
Yeah.
Because I've been on plenty of marches. I'm on one of those marches right now. Like, I had a conversation with my husband to Kate Shields Stenzinger, and she was like, you need a day off. And I'm like, so when are you going to not eat? And because one of my big roles now is, I'm taking care of the household as a major hat, because of everyone's working at home, school from home, and right.
Yeah.
And then all the support for the school from home for the young kids, and dude, it's plenty, and creates a lot of scheduling puzzles. And we've all been figuring it out and getting more skilled at this, but like, hearing that everyone's reality is different, right? Some folks caring for kids, aging parents, some folks single, some folks, whatever. I mean, but like, wherever you're at now, it's going to have different. So I think it's good to have some kind of awareness and malleability of like, how can I make this work? And like recognizing that, and trying to not, really, you value yourself no matter how extreme the commitments are, and try to find a way to take care of yourself. It's hard. And like, when you're in that extreme of like not having weekends off for a long time, which is currently my deal, it's, it's not the greatest. I wouldn't recommend this.
No.
But at the same time, I have been, this is a circumstance, like, I'm very thoughtfully adapting and trying to figure these things out. And also, trying to be a good business artist, right? And think of problems like this showing up on the platform stuff. So whatever I figure out, I'm going to make something that works for me and my circumstance. But I think this thought process is very applicable, because, it certainly is a durable need. You're an artist, you make stuff, you got to figure it out. Well, how are you going to attend to it? Well, what are your constraints? Probably different.
My last thought on this, in terms of the way I'm thinking about the platforms and what I'm putting on the platforms, is related to an idea that Jessica Abel puts forth, which is like, when you're crafting a marketing message, what's the one thing you're trying to make? What's the one thing you're trying to bring into the world? Yes, we have lots of layers to us, and we have lots of different functions, and we are not just one thing. But what's the one thing that you can craft that messaging around? And so I'm thinking right now, my main thing is going to be trying to generate awareness and support for the Baron von Bear book, which which again, we'll mention again because I'm going to be talking about it a lot. And so when I said, okay, my public live stream, I can't be sharing the process of working on Baron Von Bear because it's under contract with the publisher. But what if I did a series of cute, brave heroes to create a filtering mechanism? I can attract the people who love stories about cute, brave heroes. Well, I happen to be working on a graphic novel about a cute, brave hero. You like Ewoks? You probably will dig Baron Von Bear. You think that Bumblebee is the coolest Transformer? Yeah, you're probably going to dig Baron Von Bear. You actually like, unironically, the Robert Burbles and Thundercats? Yep, you're going to dig Baron Von Bear. You're going to love the earnestness and sincerity and courage of these characters, right? So I'm trying to be narrow in my focus in terms of what I... Now, that's limiting me. Now I can't draw whatever I want. Yep. But I'm also thinking about the product that I make as being a part of the messaging around what value I'm trying to bring the world.
That's good. Constraints are a very helpful thing. And if you have nothing but mountains of constraints, well, do you have what do you really have? Because good luck in having the cognitive strength to hold all that in your brain and make something useful of it, right? So useful constraints, I mean, it's nice to have some and a few, or it can get complicated, but not to the extent where it's every wish on every project. So I think my hunch is that the picking a specific time, it creates a bunch of positive rippling like human relationship effects, right? And then picking the specificity as far as the what you're going to do with the message and showing up. And then being able to, you're not being hyper, there's some flexibility in that, right? Because you've thought of like, what is the meaning, and making that meaning the specificity, not saying like you're going to draw one robot and one furry thing every, whatever, every Friday,
right,
or what have you. It's, that could work too as a formula, but like, anyway, hopefully you can, I don't know if this is what I hear as I'm exploring that, is like, there's this useful focusing that is focused enough and, functional enough to do the job of the marketing and, but be doable.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually I have one more thing that I've been practicing that I just started, and maybe we can talk about that after one more ad break. What do you say?
I can't wait. That's a heck of a tease, because now I feel like you've been holding the solution in your pocket. I know.
No, well, okay. Yes, sure.
The mystery hold.
Yep. Absolutely. All you have to do is pay attention for the next minute and change, and yes, you all get a golden thing. If all this discussion is helping you to think and do useful creative work, a great way you can support what we're doing here is to interact with the products that we make. And the product that I make that I hope you'll interact with is, yes, indeed, Baron Von Bear in the case of the Two-Faced statue. Baron Von Bear, expert in the occult, never once wanted to be an adventurer, but when years of hard work are demolished, along with an ancient stone guardian that rendered harmless his collection of dangerous magical objects, he will have to enter the fray at last, and he will learn, to his dismay, that those objects were not at all what he believed. Go to BaronVonBear.com to join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or subscribe to my mailing list for free to get some exclusive looks at the process of making my next middle grade graphic novel. BaronVonBear.com. Rob?
And something I'm working on actively right now is Guitar Fretter. If you go to guitarfretter.com, you're going to land on this page, which is my itch.io store page, and has links to all the places where you can get Guitar Fretter, because it's a mobile app. It works on small, it's whatever your device. It works on tablets, works on phones. And what's it about? Well, it makes an action puzzle game out of memorizing the notes on a guitar fretboard. Works for 4 and 5 string bass, 6 and 7 string guitar. It is at its low introductory price. It's been at for a long time, $2 right now. This is actually good news. I'm actually increasing the price somewhat soon. And this is your chance to get in on the existing $2 price. But why am I doing that? Because I'm going to be releasing a free version of Guitar Fretter down the road. It's not going to have all the features of the full one, but it'll be a useful, good experience. And then I'm doing more things and adding more to the full version of Guitar Fretter. All that's happening behind the scenes right now. Lefty flip. Do you flip a guitar around and play it left-handed? That will be in the game. It's got custom tuning, all this kind of stuff. And it's just little creatures show up with notes on their bellies and you match that fretboard. There's an algorithm in the game that hides notes and makes you explore and test your memory and memorization of it too. And so that's the whole hook and explore the puzzle of this thing. So go to guitarfretter.com, get your copy today. It's always encouraging, and I go for it at the lower price. And that's the new versions are coming soon. Can't tell you exactly when, but guitarfretter.com and play this super fun game.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh, Nate Marcel says best pitch of Guitar best pitch of Guitar Fretter. I'm buying it. Sweet. Thank you, Nate.
Awesome.
So, okay, I teased out something for the end, but before we do that, in the Discord, Matt Zolman chimed in and said, thoughts on specific content on specific platforms versus posting the same content on all platforms. That's a good question. Obviously, there's differences in terms of the platforms. When you think of YouTube as a social platform, yeah, a half hour to 45-minute video ain't going on Twitter necessarily. Although, one thing I have been playing with is repurposing my live streams to my Instagram through IGTV. And I'd have to look to see. I haven't looked at my metrics on that recently to see how those videos are doing. But that's something that I can take to the Discord afterwards and talk about. Because, yeah, there is... The way I think about it, Matt, is I sort of like have a hierarchy in my head of like where's like the place where it's really meant to be seen, and then like I'll repost it to other places, and I know it's not optimized for them. So like I post a lot of square images because I post a lot. I treat Instagram as my first candidate for social posting, and I reshare that same square picture to Twitter and Facebook, even though they don't like that format as much. Like if you log into Canva, it'll actually say like, what do you want to make? You want to make a Facebook post, a Twitter post, an Instagram post, right? So yeah. Adding to the quest. Oh, I got my sword ready to go on my quest. Well, I've gone this quest.
It's about us, like creator. Yeah. We recognize you if you create like us. That's super tension thing, cognitive dissonance I have about all that. But it is, hey, it's I'm a citizen and I may not like it, but it's my city. Keep sweeping, So I like that framing. It's reasonable. It's so easy to cling on to, and I like what would be ideal? Well, it'd be ideal probably if you had a team of folks working with you to craft the message specifically for every single place, and that you had a scale enough of your like what the business model that funds your ability to do that, to pay for folks to help you so you could balance out all this stuff. But your resources are a big part of this, right? So like what can you afford to do? And having some focus and priority it's the only reasonable way to tackle this as an independent creator, right? Because unreasonable leads to, what is your capacity?
Unreasonable leads to me listening to Kazuki. We should go and like, what? You don't work weekends? He doesn't work weekends. Sarah Luffy in the Discord is asking, like, do you have any thoughts on things like Pinterest? Now, because I admit, Pinterest was something where like I use it all the time for creating collections of reference material for stuff, but I don't use it at all for like sharing my stuff on them. Have you looked into that at all, or no?
It's on my radar because Canva supports it, and I thought
interesting.
Later, or Canva supports it, and I thought, hey, wait a minute, I only use Pinterest for reference, but maybe I should post there. And it adds to this. So, so Sarah Lutfi, if you have any signal as far as, there's community, there's exchange, or there's some kind of conversation going on, that's a giant positive indicator to say, yeah, go participate there. But otherwise, it's a venue. It's worth experimenting, right? If you were a band in a coffee shop that you didn't know had a stage, is like, sure, go ahead. Can you perform here? We'll give you, we'll do a cover charge. We'll do whatever, we're trying to do a thing. And, you don't have to know everything about the venue before you say, yeah, why not? I'll go perform there a little bit.
Joseph Coco in the Twitch chat. We got so many different chats going on, and there's a lot of people interacting with us today. This is so fun.
Look at us being on multiple platforms right now.
Yeah. Yep. Fair. Yes, we have a Restream account, and we multicast to as many places as possible. And Joseph saying regarding Pinterest, it's a strange one. It's like 94% female users, and is optimized for a shopping experience, and the users like that. See, that gets me curious, because if there's a lot of parents using it, and they're using it specifically to go beyond it to buy something, that's intriguing to me. It's making a comic for young people. So now you got me wondering, Joseph. And we also have been mentioning a lot on this service called Canva. If you haven't heard of it, it's like Adobe Spark. It's like a web browser based design app that makes it super simple and easy to create quick graphics. And what I love about it is I can do it on my desktop or on my phone. They do not support the show. They should give us money for mentioning their name. But and we use them to make the title cards for these Lean Into Art episodes. So and I leaned on it heavily for CXC last year for a lot of the graphics that we made for CXC. So as a matter of fact, here's another reason they should support me. I'm doing a workshop this Saturday teaching how to teach with video, and I'm going to lean on Canva heavily for how do you make overlays for OBS. Well, Canva makes transparent pings, and they're very easy to do. Make a purple square, boom, export it, boom. Now I can put it behind my video, boom, and it looks all framed and nice. So
you just did a mini Canva workshop. Yeah, they.
I want that money, Canva.
Totally. Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's it has been incredibly useful for a variety of projects too, in my house and with businesses and all the stuff. So which as a general checklist thing to consider, enabling tools. It's what helps you get the message out for that different given platform, right? And honestly, Canva is one of those tools that hits a few different options, because most things you design can also be animated pretty quickly and become anything from interstitial, I'll be right back, or I have this thought, I have a poem or quote, a thing I'm going to post. It's you can make that even animated on Canva. So
yeah, it's wild.
But other tools, and think of the tools try not to set up a path of many hoops and difficulties to get your message out. And I'm filing that away in my criteria that I'm trying to gather from this episode of that would help make it easier, right? So I know timing, I know, picking some when do I want to show up, the primary thing, but then there's the rippling effects of other places to show up, right? The supporting messages and all that. And how do I get it out there? I think I want to try a scheduling tool based on what I hear, right? So I got to get into that again. And And I'm going to have to do some prioritization about which platform. One will be at the top, or just one or two, depending on the thing. So,
the last thing,
What's that?
Well, the thing I teased before the ad break, when we can close out with that, because it's related to something you were talking about in terms of hard for you? Are there too many hoops for you to jump through to make it? There's also how many hoops are there for the users to get it? And that's another thing. It's like, you got to craft the messaging, but we also have to make it as easy to find as possible. And it's like, oh, we'll just post everywhere. Well, we've already talked about how there's like invisible rules in these different communities to like, we only celebrate people who do it this way. So one thing that I had a conversation with my buddy Hoover, who is my co-host on the 4 Million Years Later podcast, and he said to me, it's really hard to find all the stuff you make and ways to support you. He's like, and I'm one of your best friends, and I can't figure out how to do it. I'm like, that's fair. So last month I did a sort of a roll up of everything I did in March, collecting all of the content that I produced over the month of March and put it in one place with links to everything. And then with reminders of things you can buy from me, products you can buy, stuff you can read for free, and all the videos and art that I made over the course of the month. And my plan is that I'm going to use that blog post as a regular feature on my Patreon and part of my monthly newsletter. So just to make as easy to browse as possible. Did I miss anything from Jerzy this month? Well, here it all is. And, I got tagged on my Patreon with ICYMI in case you missed it. And so you just hit that tag to get basically a catalog of everything that I've made. That's the goal.
That is useful. That's addressing, well, I think an important adjacent thing to marketing, but worth addressing as a separate concern, which is merchandising and the preparing of the shelves, the presentation, the placement, the virtual, what have you, or physical someday, but like so once people become aware of you, once they decide they have the curiosity, the trust, the thing that gets them across the threshold from sitting back to leaning forward and acting, right? And so when they act, where do they go? Or they want to act, can they easily, right? Do they have that simple landing page to go to? Or does a thing come to them if at some point in the past they've connected with you where you're like, hey, just in case you want to, jump on board, catch up, see what's up, benefit from the things I've made recently. Here's a thing. I like that mechanism. It kind of combines like having, cause like I want to have an ongoing landing page. So, and what I've done is I made, if you go to interactive-storyteller.com/links, it's like my version of one of those, link home pages because, hey, link in profile, right? And so this is, I made my own page of that because I have a website hosted on a platform that makes it easy to update that thing, because I may as well make that page on my platform instead of hosting it somewhere else. But it's fine if you host it somewhere else. That's a nice functional thing. But then the heartbeat reminder that is like in a separate channel of like, oh, you'll get an email occasionally that is service minded. It's meant to help. It's not just, blasting out an out of context thing.
Right. Buy my stuff. I know that I have expressed thoughts about how that's how it would feel to do that. But then once I heard from somebody who is very close to me, who hears from me all the time what I'm making, and said, but you made it so hard to get. And I realized, oh, that is a service. Putting it in one place for everybody is a service. That I hadn't considered that. Nate Marcel is asking in the chat about the 30-day sort of roll-up or roundup of material, asking how much time do I slot out for that. That's a very, very good question. So one of the ways that I'm making it manageable, because the first time I did it, it took like an hour to collect all the links and look through all my history and put that together. So now I have a working document that I use in Microsoft, what is it called? Sticky notes. I have a sticky note, and whenever I make a thing and the link goes anywhere, if I can post the link to social media, I can put the link in that list with a little bit of context around it. This is leading to our episode, 285 or 286, whatever, where Rob and I talked about this link. And so now I have an ongoing, and so I would say probably so far this week, as I've been starting to put together the post, I've maybe spent 30 minutes on it. hopefully not much more because I got to do the next post tomorrow since it's the last day of the month. So
it's not zero cost.
Right.
This does cost.
Yep.
But it actually costs if you're not doing it too.
Yep.
So that's it's inherently limiting the potential of folks to find and discover and interact with the stuff that you make, because each time you're showing up in the different venues that are their virtual lands driven by the flow of digital constructs that are being manipulated with algorithms. So it's like you show up and maybe a thing is hidden from you, even though it's close by. But then maybe you show up again and it's like, hey, in case you missed it, whatever. You don't know when and how, but like if you don't participate at all, then you've shut off the possibility. And then hopefully going to multiple platforms is in a way that is affordable. And when that is probably going to help. And if you notice over time, as you tend to, like, are more people coming to see my stuff and what have you, then you fully attended to this matter of like, is it working? I made the thing. Is it connecting? What are people doing? Right? Are they seeing it? Are they buying it? And all that stuff. And that's just that's the reality. It's going back to the tweet that C. Spike Trotman posted it, or the whole thread, and things that we've believed for years. It's like, this is just an ongoing, durable part, like in principle, that you need to address. That all the fashion and the details and the quirks are going to change, and the formula of what works for you now is going to be different than what works for you later. But the fact that it matters doesn't change.
Well, Rob, I think we had a creative work chat. That felt like a creative work chat. So,
I think so. I appreciate this. This is really good food for thought.
Good.
I took a lot of notes that I'm going to turn into a checklist.
Sweet. All right, everyone. Well, we'll look forward to continuing the conversation in the Lean Into Art Discord at leanintoart.com/Discord is where you can join us and, comment in the comments channel. We'll be glad to talk with you there. And we do the creative work chat episodes every 2 weeks. And we stream it live at YouTube, Twitch, and in the Lean Into Art Discord, and we interact with you while you chat with us. And then next week will be a pre-recorded mini workshop episode. So until then, I have been Jerzy Drozd of leanintoart.com and rss.jdrozd.com for everything that I make.
And I am Rob Stenzinger of Lean Into Art. And you can really catch up with the stuff that I make and get some good articles and things at interactive-storyteller.com.
Okay, bye.
Show notes for this episode can be found at leanintoart.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at the user leanintoart, and you can reach us via email at leanintoart@gmail.com. And remember, leaners aren't wieners. Thanks for listening.